The United Nations aid agency that services Gaza has been begging for fuel, warning its operations would cease without it. UNRWA says it did receive some fuel today, but it fell far short of what it needs. The agency also warned that 70% of people in Gaza are without clean drinking water. Juliette Touma is the Director of Communications for UNRWA. She joins us now live from Jordan. Good to have you with us. So your agency has been the main coordinator of humanitarian aid into Gaza since it was placed under siege. I understand that for the first time since October 7th, you have got some fuel from Israel. Just how much are we talking and what does it mean?
Yeah, thank you. Very, very little. In fact, it's the equivalent to half a truck of fuel. And the use of that fuel is conditional for UNRWA. It can only use it to go and pick up the aid trucks that are coming from Egypt. We cannot use it for anything else, not the hospitals, not other medical facilities, not our own cars to deliver assistance to people in need. So it's very conditional and it's only for a specific purpose and it's really, really tiny.
So a tiny amount of fuel and very strict restrictions from Israel as to what you can use it for. Has Israel given you any other indication that you'll get more fuel in the coming days?
Look, it's been 5 very long weeks for the communities in Gaza, but it's also been 5 very long weeks for my colleagues on the ground, the humanitarians, the unsung heroes on the front lines who every single day face multiple challenges to respond to the huge needs of the communities, and fuel and the restrictions and the siege and the ban of the delivery of fuel has made our life at UNRWA and the humanitarian operation by and large very, very difficult, if not impossible.
And Juliette, there are over 2 million people in Gaza. How many have access to clean drinking water right now? And for those that don't have it, what are they having to resort to?
As of tonight, 70% of people in the Gaza Strip will not have access to clean water because of the fuel shortages. 70%. And so many people are resorting to dangerous sources of water, including in some cases well water or other not clean water. Some colleagues have told us that they've seen people going to the sea, using the water from the sea. So 70% will tonight in Gaza not have drinking water.
We have heard from Israel claiming that Hamas is stockpiling fuel, which is intended for civilians. What's your response to that?
Look, what I do know is the agency I work with, UNRWA, the largest humanitarian agency in Gaza, does not have fuel to operate, to provide assistance to 800,000 people who have come to seek protection and safety in our shelters across the Gaza Strip. We don't have it. UNRWA, the United Nations, does not have it.
So how many aid trucks are needed right now just to provide the basic essentials for those 800,000 people plus?
Before the war started, Gaza used to get every single day 500 trucks. Now, in the past 3 weeks, since trucks started coming in, we got the equivalent of 2 days of trucks in 3 weeks. And now the humanitarian needs on the ground in Gaza for people are huge because of the war and the forced displacement and the collective punishment. So we need many more trucks. What is being sent is good, but it's by far not enough, especially as the war continues and as the siege becomes far more tight.
And Juliette, since Israel announced its operations at Al-Shifa Hospital, we've seen more people on foot walking south. Speak to us about the sort of facilities, the shelters that you have in the south of Gaza right now and the overcrowding.
Yes, since the 4th of November, we've seen more and more people leaving the northern parts of Gaza, including Gaza City. Our teams were there on the receiving end. They reported that people were arriving on foot, mostly those who could afford it got on donkey carts. They were dehydrated, they were exhausted. And there's also another element that we rarely speak to, and that's the trauma and the shock. And for many people, especially the elderly, this is reliving the trauma of 1948. For the younger generation, it's living the traumas of their ancestors, including their fathers, their mothers, their grandparents. And that is an element that we should not underestimate for the Palestinian communities in the Gaza Strip and elsewhere.
And Juliette, you spoke about the unsung heroes, the aid workers operating under such dire conditions in Gaza. We know that the UN has lost more aid workers in this conflict than any other war in such a short amount of time, in less than 5 weeks. Now over 101 people killed from the UN. How are your colleagues dealing with this and coping in Gaza? What are they telling you?
In fact, it's 103 colleagues. Just before I came to speak to you, I got the latest from our colleagues, and this is the worst update I get every single day, is the number of colleagues killed. And one has to remind themselves that these are not numbers or statistics. These are our colleagues and our friends. These are family members. These are mothers and fathers. They were doctors, they were teachers, they were the backbone of this operation, some of them for decades. And it is very, very sad for the colleagues who continue to be on the front lines in Gaza, this huge loss and almost inability to grieve in dignity for their colleagues who they lost, who were killed over the past 5 weeks in Gaza.
Juliette Touma, UNRWA Director of Communications, we're sorry for what you and your team are dealing with there in Gaza as well. We appreciate your time and thank you for all the work you guys are doing. Well, in a press briefing Tuesday, a spokesperson for the IDF said they, quote, still have a lot of work to get done and that it will take time. This comes as Israel's defense minister claims Hamas has lost control in northern Gaza. Take a listen.
You've seen Golani troops sitting in Gaza's parliament. This is significant. I can tell you that in the northern Gaza Strip, Hamas has lost its control. Actually, we're controlling all of the area that's above and underground of the northern Gaza Strip, and especially in Gaza City.
Well, CNN cannot verify those claims. CNN's Ed Lavandera is live for us in Tel Aviv and joins us now. Good to have you with us, Ed. So let's start with those claims, because we did hear initially the IDF had encircled the north of Gaza, surrounding it on all corners, and now it claims that it is control, that Hamas no longer has control of the north. What can you tell us?
Well, it's very difficult to confirm all of this because it's impossible to operate on the ground there inside of Gaza. But based on the conversations we have and some of the reporting we have been able to do inside of Gaza, our colleague Nick Robertson traveling inside with a unit of the Israeli military. And you could see as they traveled around the extent to which the Israeli military has been able to move deeper and deeper inside of Gaza. They say they have located nearly 200 tunnels in that area, as well as taking out nearly 3,000 Hamas, what they describe as Hamas terrorist structures as well. So they have been able to navigate and get rather deep into Gaza, especially considering the amount of fighting and the fighting that is ongoing around the Al-Shifa hospital there in the heart of Gaza City, which is about halfway into the Gaza territory.
And just talk to us more about those operations at Al-Shifa Hospital, now well over 12 hours. What is Israel saying about any evidence that the hospital was part of a headquarters for Hamas?
Well, we're getting new information on this tonight here, as the Israeli Defense Force spokesperson says that they have, quote, uncovered, quote, concrete evidence that Hamas has used the Al-Shifa hospital as a command and control area for Hamas fighters, not just in the hospital as well as underground. Hamas officials are saying that this is a lie and blatant propaganda. However, the Israeli Defense Force official says that they are working on providing evidence of what they have found here since this attack was launched in the early morning hours of Wednesday morning, as you mentioned, so well into 12 hours of this. And it has been intense. We have heard from hospital staff who have described the situation inside the hospital as Israeli soldiers have moved in as, quote, horrific. There was a Palestinian journalist who described firefighting going on between soldiers and people inside the hospital. Israeli Defense Forces say they have not been engaged in any kind of firefighting inside or exchange of gunfire inside the hospital. They do acknowledge that as they approached and were coming into the hospital grounds, that the gunfire was exchanged, but they deny that that has happened actually inside the hospital. So very tense and very terrifying moments for many of the civilians and the hospital staff who have sought refuge inside this hospital in the heart of Gaza City.
Yeah, certainly terrifying scenes. Good to have you with us, Ed Lavendera. Thanks so much.